Welcome and good evening to Amherst Theological Seminary Discipleship Hour. Chilton, why don't you open us up with a word of prayer?
Lord, we thank you for this day and for our country, the opportunity to be witnesses to the blessings that come from following the teachings of the Bible and in Jesus Christ, our Lord and Savior, and sharing this blessing with others. So that we have hope and trust and the reward of peace in our hearts and love for one another. In Jesus Christ we pray. Amen.
Amen. Thank you so very much. All right, there we are. We are recording and we're ready to go. Tonight we're going to start talking about idolatry. Now we talked about we've been talking about Adam and Eve and the sin nature and the curses that were dispensed in the garden. And I'm going to put forth a statement. We sin, I've heard the statement, and I've heard this way too many times, to be quite honest with you. We sin because we're sinners. Sin because we're sinners. Well, that's a true statement. But that does not tell me anything. The problem with that statement of telling me we sin because we're sinners, basically what that leads to is the first thing I cover here in the notes. Adam and Eve disobeyed, and that leads to a performance mentality. So in other words, if we sin because, if we're sinners because we sin, well then all I got to do is stop doing wrong things. And then I'm okay. Well, that leads to this theology of works. As long as I do good things, don't do bad things, and I go ahead and present myself well, present a nice facade, then I'm okay. I'm okay. But then good works become the object. And as long as you avoid doing the wrong and the bad things, do good works and everything, this leads to bondage. And all of a sudden, God becomes the taskmaster, keeping points on the scoreboard in the sky. Okay? That's not a relationship with Jesus Christ. That's not what we're here for. I'd much rather think of it as a worship mentality. Now, there's a fundamental truth that we have to observe. And this is something that you need to get embedded in your psyche, in your memory banks. The spiritual realm works totally differently than the natural realm. God's economy works in a totally different way. And idolatry means we worship the wrong things. That's the reason why I said rebellion, idolatry, and worship. And we'll find out why rebellion in just a minute. But a worship mentality basically says, when I sin, I've come out of godly authority. Okay? I'm in rebellion against God. So, since we are sinners because of our sin nature, this is something that we have to learn how to live in the way Jesus wants us to live. And we call that sanctification. But the worship mentality recognizes some very significant things. First of all, Jesus settled your sin issue. Jesus settled the sin issue. Now, this doesn't mean, as the New Testament tells us, that you have this license to go out and do whatever you want. Obviously not. You have to ask forgiveness and you have to repent. But when you have a worship mentality, what really guides you is Jesus is the 100% real presence in your life. And this has to be practiced. How does we practice this? Worship. Worship is a 24/7/365 exercise. The Old Testament goes through this very painfully, and it's detailed. It tells us a dozen times, praise God all day long. It tells you to meditate on his word all day long. And the reason why this repetition is important is it's how it changes you. You can't just get up in the morning and say, I worship you, Lord, thanks. That's just not going to get it done because your sin nature is too well embedded. So due to our sin nature, worship has to be practiced and exercised. And we have to develop right here, a little halfway down, the worship mentality is the key. You have to develop a worship mentality. And in God's economy, in God's society, and the way the spiritual realm works, first of all, the spiritual controls the natural. Never forget that. And we're going to get into that big time down the road a little bit. But the object of your existence is twofold. You have a daily intimate walk with Jesus, which changes you, which teaches you how to live this spiritual, worshipful lifestyle. It's the secret of success. The walk itself is the secret of success, because that's when you're going to be following Jesus. And what's the object? The object is to influence people by you being you. It's that simple. It just requires the commitment. And God in Hebrews has a lot to say about rest. And this is how you enter the rest of God. I'll read it. Therefore, this is out of chapters 3 and 4 of Hebrews. Therefore, holy brothers and sisters who share in the heavenly calling, that's you and me, fix your thoughts on Jesus, whom we acknowledge as our apostle and high priest. See to it, brothers and sisters, that none of you has a sinful, unbelieving heart that turns away from the living God. Now you can be saved, but in your heart you really don't believe. And therefore you cannot enter into God's rest. You have to buy into this thing 100%, totally, completely. So we see that they were not, talking about people in the past, that they were not able to enter because of their unbelief. Therefore, since the promise of entering his rest still stands, let us be careful that none of you be found to have fallen short of it. Now we who have believed enter that rest, just as God has said. There remains then a Sabbath rest for the people of God. For anyone who enters God's rest also rests from their works. So you don't have to worry about how good you are. You don't have to worry about, doing the wrong thing all the time. It's not works related. Let us therefore make every effort to enter that rest. Page 2. So we're learning how to live the worship lifestyle. And that's what's going to counter the sin nature in you. This sanctification walk with Jesus. So page 2. Now this is returning back to what we've been discussing the past couple weeks. The foundation of the sin nature is 4 elements. Guilt. We know we have offended God because we're cursed beings. We know we're part of what it got handed down to us through Adam and Eve. So we know we're guilty. We know we've done the wrong thing. Shame is our deep-seated regret that we have offended God. It's the deep root of why we feel that something is wrong with us, why we're worried about people judging us all the time. Insecurity. We're separated from God, like Adam and Eve were. Who's going to take care of me? Who's going to take care of me? It's a big, evil, awful world out there. Who's going to take care of me? Jesus will take care of you. He has a path he wants you to walk, but you have to trust no matter what happens. You have to trust. And idolatry is false worship. It's our innate need to seek that which will bring security. Idolatry is manifested when we worship anything other than God, worship what we believe is our security, and worship what brings us pleasure. And then there's the curse. We are all born under the curse. The sin nature is imputed to us. That's just the way it works. You may sit there and say, I wasn't there, I didn't do anything. Well, that's not the way God set it up. And you got to play by the rules. You don't pull a Monopoly game out and start making up all your own rules, although a lot of people do. Now, like I say, we sin because we're idolaters who believe the wrong things. That's the basis of idolatry. Like we talked about, the sin nature is a network of beliefs, and we're going to go over them individually, the 6, in what I call rebellion idolatry. These are the idols that came about through rebellion, through when they rebelled. This is, well, the next week is going to be on need idolatry, what we look for our security in. But this is rebellion idolatry, and the first one is pride. When the woman saw that the fruit of the tree was good for food and pleasing to the eye and also desirable for gaining wisdom, she took some and ate it. She also gave some to her husband who was with her, and he ate it. So here, Adam and Eve are demonstrating pride. Defined here is the belief it is permissible to come out of godly authority, and by implication, submission to satanic authority follows. And we do this all the time. We do this all the time. What am I going to do about this? We have something that happens, what am I going to do about this? I. Me. In Adam and Eve's case, what happened? Eve started talking to the tempter. Well, you know what? It looks good to eat. It looks good to eat. And I'm going to get wisdom out of it. Now, where did she fall? Anybody want to answer? When she doubted what God said. She felt from the moment she started opening up her mouth. First of all, she got involved in a conversation with him, this mental gymnastics, justifying why she should do this. So, and then, bottom line is, she thought, well, if God can have it, why can't I? And this is what we do. This is what we do a lot. I'm going to go out on my own because this is just the way I want to do it. So we do this a lot, and that's our pride. And it's rebellion. It's rebellion against God. I've often heard it preached that pride is the opposite of humility. Okay, well, what does that really tell me? Well, humility is the opposite of pride. Okay, what does that tell me? Humble yourself before God in all circumstances. And this is learned behavior over time, how you do this. You have to make that conscious commitment 100% to give your life over to God and let Him have it. We want to hold on to it. We just want to hold on to that. Façade is the second idol. Genesis 3:7. Then the eyes of both of them were open, and they realized they were naked, so they sewed fig leaves together and made coverings for themselves. So why do they cover up? Because now they see themselves differently. They're afraid of being judged by God, and they're afraid of being judged by one another. Prior to this, they had no problem with one another. But now they have to cover themselves up. Façade is the belief that to the fullest extent possible, I can't let anyone judge me. I must be an authority. I must be judged. So I attempt to project an image of myself in accordance to what I perceive will put me in authority over other people. This is kind of a hard concept to understand. But we like to present a facade. We want to be known as likable people. We want people to like us. We want to look good. So we put on a facade. Happens all the time. Now, I'm not advocating that you walk into church next Sunday and say, hey, listen, I got a big-time gambling problem. Somebody help me. You just tell a few people at a time. Just tell one or two people, me, Dave, or other people that you feel comfortable and secure with. Facade is self-deceiving in that it depends on our perception of how others perceive us. And in effect, it allows others to control you. Because the facade you want to project is really dependent on what you believe the audience you're trying to project yourself as. And it's going to change no matter where you go. It's exhausting. It's exhausting to sit there and think, but we do it all the time, don't we? We do it all the time. It's dependent on what we think the other believes regarding us. Page 3. Security, Genesis 3:19. So this is where Adam finds out he's going to be a farmer. And because now he's got to provide. Now he's got to provide where all they had to do was walk around the garden and pick and eat whatever they wanted, except from the tree of life and the tree of the knowledge of good and evil. I mean, think about this. Have you ever think about this? That when they ate from the tree of knowledge of good and evil, they get ejected from the garden. But had they proceeded from that point to go eat from the tree of life, they'd have lived forever. So God's got to eject them out. So safety is found, we think, safety is found in human institutions. Safety is seen in protection from government, financial institutions, employers, what have you. I was watching something before it came on YouTube tonight, before it came in. This woman was interviewing 3 people who used to work for the Agency of International Development, AID. You remember USAID. It was the first government agency that Trump shut down. And they were talking about, I was going to work 3 of them. I was going to work there forever. Life was great. Life was easy. Well, then all of a sudden, life wasn't as secure. But we face natural disasters. Companies go bankrupt. Stuff happens every single day. But we put our confidence in these institutions. And that's idolatry. That's misplaced faith. Now, special cases, Genesis 3:16. Your desire will be for your husband, and he will rule over you. Women can look to sinful husbands for security instead of looking to a living God. Women compare their husbands. They compare their kids. They can put their security and their social standing in what they feel like their husband is presenting. Men will likely see security in a job, a career, talent, or a skill. And this is really universal. And what we know is mammon, the love of money, we see that as our security. We see money as our security. But yet it can go like that. Now, then there's performance. Cursed is the ground because of you. Through painful toil you will eat food from it all the days of your life. By the sweat of your brow you will eat your food. Okay, what do we mean by performance? I've got it right here. So we idolize human institutions. Men do especially, right? Because we put our stock in our jobs and in our talents and our skills and all that, the ability to provide. And we tend to think of, okay, if I perform really well in this institution, then I'll be successful and I'll be more secure. And in corporate America, the higher I rise, the less people can judge me. I get to judge them because I'm better than them, because now I'm VP of whatever. So if I look on the org chart, oh, all these people are below me. And this is rampant in corporate America. Women will likely exhibit competitive tendencies with other women as well as with their children. And they will tend to idolize performance in their husbands as a key to their own security. Let me digress for a second here. When I was doing a men's ministry for pornography, the number one thing I would hear from men who were involved, the number one thing, without question, is, Nick, I come home and she tells me how to do my job. I don't dare discuss it with my job because she's going to critique something. I used to hear that over and over and over again. And it's rampant because women see their security. In many cases, I mean, obviously not all, but in many cases, they see how he's doing and they're evaluating how he's doing. They don't want to lose their position and their power and all that other stuff. And then there's entitlement. When the woman saw that the fruit of the tree was good for food and pleasing to the eye and desirable for gaining wisdom, she took some and ate it and gave some to her husband who was with her, and he ate it. Eve, motivated by entitlement. Okay? You know what, it looks good, it'll give me wisdom, this, that, and the other thing. Bottom line, she's sitting there thinking, God can have it, why can't I? I'm entitled to it. God can have it, I'm entitled to it. And this is the way we think. This is the way we think. We get envious of what other people have. In its own way, we feel like we're entitled to that. Gee, I wish I had that. Page 4. Pleasure. For although they knew God, they neither glorified him as God nor gave thanks to him, but their thinking became futile and their foolish hearts were darkened. They exchanged the truth about God for a lie and worshiped, excuse me, and worshiped and served created things rather than Christ, which describes a lot of what we've been talking about, serving the created things rather than the Creator. They have filled with every kind of wickedness. They invent ways of doing evil. And boy, don't we see that nowadays in this society. They have invented ways of doing evil. It's that bad. And then there's the term wickedness. I've heard this defined as the refusal or absence of worship. These wicked people who refuse to listen to my words, who follow the stubbornness in their heart. This ultimately applies to all of us. In all your ways submit to him, Proverbs 3:6. And this goes far enough, and we're seeing it in the world today. The absence, the refusal, or the absence of worship under God inevitably results in perversion and chaos. We use pleasure to relieve anxiety and chaos to reach peace. Drugs, alcohol, sex, what have you. We know it will always be temporary, yet we substitute pleasure for intimacy. Thus, we can emotionally hide so we don't have to reveal ourselves. And we can avoid being judged in this way, which concurs with the Façade belief. Wickedness seems like a harsh word. If Eve had had a worship mentality, then things might be different. But she didn't. She didn't. That's about all I have. Is there any questions? Okay.
have a hymn book near you and turn to number 306. This song is an answer to almost everything he said.